Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Monday. Hope you guys are having a good Labor Day. I am, pretty good anyway. It's nice and sunny out today. It's September 4th. It's a Monday, it's Labor Day, and thank you for tuning in. The first thing I want to talk about is Burning Man. Honest to God. I mean, there's pictures here of the mud. Now, from what I understand, this mud was caustic. What does that mean? It means it can burn your skin. It means it's so alkaline. And I mean, it's knee deep, for crying out loud. Look at this woman walking through the mud. Anyway, what I want to say is, that might not be a woman. Shoulders do not. I think that's a man in a dress. I'm not sure. His shoulders look pretty heavy to me for a woman. His awful muscly looking arm. I just looked at it quick. I thought it was a woman. Sorry, I didn't want to offend anybody, Anyway, there's another picture of one of them in the mud, and he's got lion-looking lion skin pants on. Now, here's what I want to say about this. Everybody that went there, some 73,000 people, each had different experiences. Some of them probably loved it. Picture they come rolling in a big Winnebago bus thing that's like enormous. And they got everything inside there. They got running water. They got their own generator for electricity. They got their tires, crying out loud, are 6 feet high. They come rolling in there, they sit down in the mud, and they have a good time. I mean, they got everything they need. They got widescreen TV inside their machine. Their experience is going to be totally different than the guy who comes in there practically backpacking. He comes in there on a dirt bike or something with a backpack on his back with a tent inside. And that's what he come on, right? He comes there, and what's going to happen with him? Well, he's going to have to pitch his tent on that mud. He's going to lay down inside his tent. It's going to be an awful squishy. And it's going to be coming squirting up through this caustic mud, And has he got any food or any water or anything? No, he's going to have to rely upon other people, which might be a little bit hard to do. There's probably food there and stuff, but I mean, it's just going to be a tough trip for that person in a tent there on that mud. So his experience is going to be totally different from the person who's got the big machine, the big Winnebago with all the luxury features and everything else. And that's what's going on there. There's an awful lot of those big Winnebagos in there and those big machines in there. But there's other people that are in tents. So that's the situation that's going on right now. It's 73,000 people, and they're leaving the vicinity now. But some of them didn't have a very pleasant trip. But other ones, really, they felt like, hey, this is fine. I mean, we enjoyed it. We just sat back in our big Winnebago and had a coffee and looked out the window and thought it was very interesting. Some people, I'm just saying. Now, I'm going to talk about something. We are in a Great Depression right now, and I'm going to prove it to you guys. Here's the thing. From the Bureau of Labor Statistics, what was the wages they made during the Great Depression? Does anybody know out there? I will tell you what the wages were. Average median wage was just under $5,000 a year. That doesn't sound like much. You guys are saying, how could they get by on $5,000 a year? For crying out loud. Well, I'll show you. Take a look at these grocery prices and stuff. Now, these are 1930, and here's the price of groceries, And you're going to be a little bit shocked. A dozen eggs, 18 cents. Look, bananas, 19 cents for 4 pounds. Okay? Now, bananas, believe it or not, bananas are a great indicator. They move with the prices of food. And by the way, they're something like 90 cents a pound now. And so take a look at that. 19 cents for 4 pounds of bananas. So that's 5 cents a pound for bananas. And now they're like 90 cents a pound. That's probably the equivalent of what it is. So food prices went up about 20 times higher. 20 times. Potatoes, 18 cents. Now, potatoes is another good gauge. Potatoes were 18 cents for 10 pounds. I just got finished paying, I think it was $8.97 for 10 pounds of potatoes. $9 for 10 pounds of potatoes. So they were 18 cents. Well, again, that's like over 20 times the price. Okay? So food is went 20 times the price. Now, what about apartments and stuff in the United States of America? Dwelling. Your cost of rent. 20 times as high as well. So let's do the math real quick. $5,000 they used to make, right? And everything's went up 20 times. Apartments and food and all your necessities. Electrical bill, everything's went up 20 times since then. But now, what about wages now? What's the average wage of people are making in the United States right now? A good wage, good average wage. Well, it's the same thing. It's just went up. It's like just under $50,000 a year. Is the equivalent of what they were making in the Great Depression with $5,000 a year. Okay, so now figure this with me real quick. Everything that you buy and out there has went up 20 times. But your wages have went from roughly $5,000 to $50,000. That's 10 times. Are you guys catching on to this? Real quick, I know you guys are catching. You got it. That means our money's only going half as far as it did during the height in 1930 at the height of the Great Depression. Well, you say, well, Glenn, what about people who are working? Everybody's working now. No, they're not. The only difference between the Great Depression and where we are right now is the government is fudging the numbers on the labor statistics and on the payrolls and all this kind of stuff. They are fudging the numbers, and they are making it look like there's a much lower, under 5%. But that's not true. So I went to Shadow Stats last night, and I took a look at the real rate of unemployment. Now, during the Great Depression, they used to measure unemployment fairly. And they had 25% unemployment during the height of the Great Depression. At its very worst, at its very peak. I went to Shadow Stats last night, and I found out that the real numbers figured by the same metric as they used back then, in the old days, to figure the unemployment rate. Shadow Stats still uses the same old metric. They don't fudge the numbers with all of these new, what do they have different names for it, how they do it. They have different methods that they use to fudge the numbers. The numbers are exactly the same. We're looking at about 25% unemployment rate right now when you figure the unemployment rate by the old metric. So what does all this mean? It means there's as many unemployed right now as there was during the height of the Great Depression. And it means our wages out there are only buying half as much as they did during the height of the Great Depression. So everybody yelled about the Great Depression. It was horrible. It was terrible, terrible, terrible. Well, you got to understand something. They just got off of 10 years of really good times in the United States. I'm talking about luxury. It was called the Roaring 20s, the 1920s, and everybody was making money hand over fist. Practically everybody got rich in the everybody, or even the poor people in the United States were living large during the Roaring 20s. And all of a sudden the Great Depression hit. That fall, from being really good times in the United States, that sudden fall into the Great Depression, people have to have time to acclimatize to being poor and get used to it. And they do. In countries where the people are poor, they don't complain. They don't say, oh, I'm poor. They don't even know they're poor. It's like a frog boiling in water. He doesn't even, if you boil him really slowly, he doesn't even know he's boiling. But they knew, because when the Great Depression hit, it was so sudden and they come off of such good times that's why it was such a big deal made about it. And why aren't they making a big deal about it now? If things are as bad as the Great Depression right now, how come we're still talking about, hey, we're coming into a recession? Which is bullshit. Excuse my French. How come? It's because they've been slowly boiling us in this water. Very slowly raising the temperature. But if you look around you, you will see. Just take a look at videos of cities now, with the people sleeping in tents and everything else. It's just as bad out there as the Great Depression. But the thing about it is when they were suffering through the worst of the Great Depression, things started to get better. On our end of the spectrum right now, we're in expectation of things to get much worse than they are right now. And you got to understand something. If back then they were earning $5,000 and food prices have went up 20 times and now we're earning $50,000, it means that we only have $2,500 worth of 1930s purchasing power, and they were earning $5,000. That's a yearly wage. Our $50,000 only buys $2,500 worth of 1930s merchandise, and they were getting $5,000 a year. They're in the height of the Great Depression, and there was just as many people working. The unemployment rate was just about par on to where it is right now. So there you go. You know the situation we're in, and they're expecting things to get a lot worse really fast from where they are right now. And I'm going to say that people, you can only take them and make them so poor in the end if they've always, it's coming in stages. See, guys, it's coming in stages. It's hitting the lower level income people first, 0 to 40,000. They're already feeling it hard. If your wage is lower than $40,000 a year, you're feeling it already. You're already feeling a pinch. You don't have near as much discretion, even if you're on the higher end of that 0 to 40,000. Say you make around 40,000. You're on the higher end. You are having to watch what you purchase now at this point. You are having to be careful. You're turning off the lights when you leave the room. You're turning the air conditioning down a couple notches. You're doing little things like that to cut back, and you do not have as much discretionary income as you used to, not near. Okay? So it's going to hit these people first, up to 40,000. But in a year or so down the line from now, in the way we're going right now, it's going to start hitting the 40 to 80,000 group. The next group up, or say 40 to 120,000 group. That group in there is going to start to get hit. And the people that make under 40,000 a year, they're going to be really in big trouble, serious trouble. In the trouble where they might lose their roof over their head and end up on the street if you make less than 40,000 in about a year from now. And that's when it's going to be hitting the next group up. From 40,000, say, to 120,000. And then when it's done with them, later, it's going to move in, it's going to start to attack the group that make from 120,000 to, say, 250,000 a year. And that's when people who are professionals are going to start to get hit. And then they're going to start to feel it. Everybody's going to get poor except for the ultra-rich who have their finger or tapped in to the money supply. The ones who walk into the bank and they the bank will lend them any amount of money they want to be lent. Those people aren't going to feel it, but they're going to get richer probably. Well, that's the way we're going. And what does all this lead to? Well, the vast majority of people are on this lower scale. They don't make $250,000 a year. The vast majority of people, probably over 90% of the people watching my show, they don't make that big money. And where are you going to be? You're going to be desperate in the end. You're going to, all your life, you've never seen poverty. You're going to really see poverty because that's what inflation's going to do to you. It's a tax. And it's going to get so big. That tax is going to get so big. It's bigger than any other tax you could ever imagine. On top of all the other taxes you have to pay them. And they're going to make you destitute in the end. But don't worry, they've got places prepared to take you. I mean, this is sick. This is sick what they're doing to us. And I say what they're doing to us, and it's all about greed. So, see, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average median weekly earning of full-time workers in the U.S. is $56,940. So I just rounded it off, $50,000 a year. So back then it was $5,000 a year. 10 times. Everything's went up 20 times. Can you imagine? But here's the thing, guys. Taking a look at this chart right here, this is silver. Now remember I said everything went up 20 times? Well, at the height of the Great Depression, 1933, right here, silver was a quarter. Well, it's saying right there. Of course, it went back up. It went back up as soon as by the time 1936 arrived, it was up to 58 cents. But during the height of the Great Depression right there, silver was a quarter. Well, let's go with the 50 cents. You know, which it was in 1936. And what's the price of silver right now? Well, let's just round it off. Let's just say, what is it? It's hovering just below 20. It was just below $25 the other day. So if we're going to say 50 cents here, which is the top number during the Great Depression in 1936, and we'll round it off to $25. Let's see, 10 times would be 50 cents would be $5, $10. So it's went up like 40 times. So if food prices went up 20 times, the silver price from the 1930s has went up 40 times. So it's kept up with inflation. Silver is keeping up with inflation. So is gold. It always has and it always will. And one thing that'll really show you guys and emphasize this point is, back in pre-1964 in the United States of America, they used to make silver coinage. Dimes, quarters. So, you know, I'm going to tell you, you could, way back in the day, for 25 cents, you could buy a gallon of gas in the United States with one of those silver quarters. If you had kept that silver quarter in your wallet all these years, you could still exchange that quarter at the coin store, get the money it's worth, go to the gas pump, pretty near buy a gallon. You couldn't do that with money in the bank. Now, say you put your money in the bank way back and then, you know, kept it in the bank all those years, that 25 cents. It wouldn't buy you a gallon of gas, not even close. It hasn't kept up with inflation. This fiat money will not keep up with inflation, and precious metals will. And yeah, we incessantly watch the charts on precious metals and watch its daily movement up and down, and we get discouraged sometimes and everything else. But think long term. think to yourself, my money in the bank is not going to keep up with inflation, and these precious metals will keep up with inflation. So this is the place to put my savings, not in fiat. Because that's just plain smart. Because what you're doing is observing the action of something over the last 100 years and noticing that it does keep up with the cost of living and the price of inflation. And you're noticing that the fiat currencies do not. And that is just simple logic. Don't trust the system. Become your own bank, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for listening to this Labor Day show. And I hope you guys are enjoying your barbecue, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow with a market report of some sort or another. Keep up to date on all the latest situations happening in the world. Like an errant missile flew off of Russia and landed in Romania today, from what I heard. No, it was some sort of a drone missile. But boy, gosh, that's dangerous. You know the war's getting dangerous when things like that start happening, because that's NATO territory. Thank you guys for listening to the show, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great afternoon. And happy Labor Day, guys. Bye-bye.